Assalamu alaikum dear students. Today our topic is adaptations. We will try to understand the adaptations in three parts. In the first part, we will just try to discuss the concept, need, and types of the adaptations. In the second part, we will deal with the adaptation of organisms to temperature, and in the third part, we will try to discuss regarding the adaptation of organisms to wind and light. So let us see today what are these adaptations. It was James Baptist Lamarck for the first time who has put forward this theory of the adaptations. ये लिमार्क था जिसने पहली बार इस थ्योरी को दिया, adaptation की थ्योरी को दिया. Now what are the adaptations? Adaptation simply means the adjustment of the organisms to the prevailing set of the environmental conditions. Basically these are the special functional and structural characteristics possessed by the organisms which help them favorably to adjust themselves to the prevailing set of the environmental conditions. So the change in environmental conditions, the change in environmental factors like change in soil conditions, change in light temperature and nutrients, and they can change the physiology and the behavior of the organisms, which can lead to the change, which can lead or which can lead or which can actually put the selection pressures on the population, selection pressure on the population. So यहाँ पे हम ये भी कहेंगे कि जो मतलब ये जहाँ तक इन adaptations का ताल्लुक है, इसका अल्टीमेट एम यही होता है कि actually through these adaptations the organisms they can obtain the food, they can obtain the space, and which is equally important for their survival. ठीक है ना? तो इसमें adaptations का मतलब यही मेन रोल है कि थ्रू दीज adaptations एक ऑर्गेनिज्म अपने आप को ऐसे एडजस्ट करता है विद द प्रिवेलिंग सेट ऑफ एनवायरमेंटल कंडीशंस ताकि ये अपने आप को अच्छी तरह से सर्वाइव कर सकता है इन लिविंग इन दैट वेरी पर्टिकुलर एनवायरनमेंट. ठीक है ना? तो अगर हम ये भी देखेंगे कि जहां तक appearance of organisms का ताल्लुक है, this appearance of organism it is actually related or it takes place due to the interaction of its genotype with its surroundings or with its environment. Now this is regarding the basic concept of the adaptation. Now what is the need of the adaptation? Actually adaptations they are very important for an organism to actually to remain alive, to survive in a particular environment. This is due to the fact that the environment does not remain constant. There occurs the change in the environmental factors. So actually to adjust to these changing environmental factors, the organism need to adjust itself, to adopt itself to these conditions so that it can survive efficiently. तो अगर हम देखेंगे कि so far as these adaptations are concerned, they are considered as the heart and soul of the evolution. ठीक है ना? Adaptations are actually are important for an organism for securing this food, water and nutrients, for obtaining the air, warmth, ठीक है ना, and space. And these adaptations are important for an organism to cope with the prevailing physical conditions of the environment like temperature, light, and apart from that The adaptations are needed by an organism for actually uh, to actually to combat or to actually cope with the natural calamities. And apart from that, these are very important for the organisms to respond to the changes which are taking around them. So this is regarding the need, concept and need of adaptations. Now, let us try to understand what are the various types of the adaptations. Different criteria have been taken into consideration for classifying these adaptations or for giving the various types of the adaptations. One criteria is regarding their natural role in the evolution. On that grounds, there are two types of the adaptations. One is known as the short term adaptations. दूसरी जो है that is long term adaptation. So far as these short term adaptations are concerned, short term adaptations, these are temporary. These actually develop due to the temporary changes in the environmental condition. Develop due to temporary changes in the environmental conditions. Apart from that, these are non-inheritable. These adaptations are non-inheritable. That means they cannot get transmitted, they cannot get actually transferred, or they are not carried from one generation to the another. They are not transmitted. तो एक और पॉइंट, DNA not changed. यहाँ पे जेनेटिक कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन पे कोई इम्पैक्ट नहीं होता पड़ता है, मतलब डीएनए में कोई चेंज नहीं होते हैं इन दिस केस ऑफ द एडॉप्टेशन. तो एक और पॉइंट, इट डज नॉट प्ले एनी रोल इन द इवोल्यूशन में भी इसका कोई अच्छा खासा रोल नहीं रहता है. We can actually understand this very type of the adaptation by an example like tanning and darkening of the skin in case of the human beings. When the human beings they are exposed to the hot sun rays, at that time our skin turns darken and it becomes tanned. Why? This is due to the accumulation of the pigment melanin that gets accumulated under our skin, and this melanin causes the tanning of the skin, and as a result of this tanning or this melanin, it absorbs the harmful ultraviolet radiations of the sun, and thereby it protects the underlying tissues. And after some time, this sun tan skin or this sun tanning, it disappears from our skin. So this is a temporary type of the adaptation. So this is not the inherited. This is not the inheritable. This is here the DNA is not changed. This is just to adjust against these hot harmful ultraviolet rays. This is we can say this is a type of adaptation, or this is where we see the short-term adaptations. On the other hand, the long-term adaptations, they are permanent adaptations. They are permanent. That means they are developed due to the permanent changes in the environmental conditions. And apart from that, these are inheritable. That means these adaptations when these changes they are developed or they get developed in an organism, they get inherited from one generation to the another generation, and here the DNA is changed. And apart from that, it plays an important role in the evolution में इसका एक अच्छा खासा रोल रहता है, these long term adaptations, because they are long, they are not temporary, they are not periodical, they are long lasting adaptations. This is why they get actually inherited from one generation to the another generation. Like we can give some examples in this context. If we will actually talk about the modification of the beaks and claws, the structural modification in the beaks and claws of the birds, they are actually suitable for feeding and perching habits. Actually, these here the change or here the modification takes place in their structures actually to serve the purpose of the feeding and the perching or feeding habit को serve करने में they play an important role. But we can see these change in these beaks and claws, we can see मतलब these changes in their offsprings as well. Also, we can say these changes or these adjustment or these structural change modifications, they get inherited from the parents to their offsprings. So this is what we call the long-term adaptation. This was one criteria, मतलब जो depending upon the role, natural role in evolution, adaptations are of two types, short term and long term. On the other hand, there is one more criteria, how genetic changes are expressed upon those glands. Adaptations have been classified into three types. One is known as the structural adaptation. Structural adaptations. दूसरी फिजियोलॉजिकल एडॉप्टेशन, तीसरा behavioral. What are the structural adaptations? Basically, these structural adaptations, here actually there occurs the modifications in the structure of the organisms in order to suit with the environmental conditions, with the prevailing environmental conditions. यहाँ पे there occurs the structural change. Likewise, you can take the example. For example, in case of Arctic fox and the desert fox. देखो desert fox में क्या होता है? Desert fox. Here the मतलब इट इज मतलब जो बेसिकली एक रूल है जो कि एलन ने दिया था, जिसको एलनस रूल कहते हैं, उसके हिसाब से the mammals which are living in the cold climatic regions, they possess the smaller extremities, and on the other hand, the mammals which are living in the warm, hot climatic conditions, they possess the larger extremities. For example, we can take that. We can actually see in case of the Arctic fox and the desert fox. In case of the desert fox, the ears are very large. This is due to this actually serves the purpose that it can radiate more and more heat. On the other hand, जो मतलब आर्टिक फोकस होता है, इसके ईयर्स जो होते हैं दे आर वेरी स्मॉल एक्सट्रीमिटीज होती हैं, यानी कि स्मॉल ईयर्स होते हैं, क्योंकि वहाँ पे उनसे वो कंजर्व हीट करता है. इसी तरह अगर हम देखेंगे कि एक कैमल की बात करेंगे जिसको हम कहते हैं मतलब शिप ऑफ द डेजर्ट, तो उस कैमल के अंदर भी बहुत सारी स्ट्रक्चरल मॉडिफिकेशन होती है. In order to live successfully in these hot desert conditions, there are certain structural modifications which we observe in case of these camels, like they have they have padded feet, they possess the muscular legs, they possess the large hump where the fats are deposited. And apart from that, internally the large intestines, they are actually very large. They are very large. They are very large in their size in order to absorb more and more water. So it possesses the long eyelashes as well as the small slitted nostrils, which actually protects it from blowing winds, है ना. तो ये मतलब these are the certain structural modifications or adjustments which we see in case of the structural adaptations. And on the other hand, the second one is the physiological adaptations. Basically, there is specialties in the chemistry as well as the metabolic activities in case of the organisms, which are unseen from the outside. Basically, these physiological adjustment or these adaptations, they are the internal changes which are actually shown by different organisms. For example, in case of the deserted animals like kangaroo rat, तो it processes the efficient kidneys to conserve the water there. इसी तरह there are many plants who actually possess these toxins which protects them from the attack of the herbivores, है ना. तो बहुत सारे plants के अंदर ये toxins भी वो produce करते हैं. These are the internal or the physiological changes. Likewise, इन केस ऑफ द माउंटेन सिकनेस हम देखते हैं, जैसे कि जब हम किसी जगह जाते हैं, मतलब किसी मतलब स्लोपी और हिली एरिया में जाते हैं, वहाँ पे हम ट्रैवल करते हैं. जर्नी के दौरान क्या होता है, वी फील सर्टेन सिम्टम्स. एंड यहाँ पे हम क्या फील करते हैं, बहुत सारी मतलब ब्रेथलेसनेस होती है. वहाँ पे भी हमारी फिर उस वक्त इंटरनल एडजस्टमेंट होती है, फिजियोलॉजिकल चेंज होती है. लाइक देयर ओकर्स द इंक्रीज इन द काउंट ऑफ द आरबीसीज, देयर ओकर्स द डिक्रीज इन द बाइंडिंग कैपेसिटी ऑफ द hemoglobin with the oxygen that gets reduced that binding capacity. And apart from that, there is increase in the breathing rate. These are some physiological adjustments. They are very quick, they are very fast to actually suit with that very situation. And the other hand, the last one is the behavioral adaptations. Here an organism, this is how an organism reacts or acts through its activities to a particular environmental setup. Like इसमें हम देखते हैं like migration of birds during winter towards the warm places. मतलब this in order to escape these cold winters, वो migrate करते हैं from the colder regions or cold winters to the warmer places or to warmer places. तो ये भी एक किस्म की adaptation होती है. And there is one more criteria upon which we can classify these adaptations, that is depending upon the habitat where these animals are living, whether they are living in air, water, or land. Accordingly, there are terrestrial adaptations, there are aerial adaptations, aquatic adaptations, and apart from cave adaptations. And this is regarding the types of the adaptations. So here today we will conclude here. In the next topic we will discuss regarding what are the how the organisms can adapt themselves to that temperature, which is one of the फंडामेंटल इन्वायरमेंटल फैक्टर्स. तो उसको टेम्परेचर को कैसे अपने आप को एडजस्ट करते हैं, अडॉप्ट करते हैं, कैसे सूट करते हैं उन कंडीशंस में, उसके बारे में हम पढ़ेंगे इन द नेक्स्ट इन द नेक्स्ट वीडियो. टिल देन, फी अमान अल्लाह. थैंक्स.